Charlotte Milligan Fox and her sister Alice were tireless in the promotion and preservation of the music and language of Ireland. In May 1910, the sisters visited the Irish-speaking area of Castlanglass or Greencastle in County Tyrone. While there, they met the traditional singers Anne Tracy, Anne Tracy, and her brother Eamon. Anna and Eamon lived beside the Avaree Owen Ray River in the townland of Benafraken. Charlotte Milligan Fox recounted her visit in the Journal of the Irish Folk Song Society, Volume 8, 1910. Using her words, this is Folk Song in County Tyrone.
Spending the spring in Ireland, I was just considering the advisability of attending the Feis Ceoil in Dublin when there came a welcome communication from one of our new members, Mr. Henry Morris. This well-known Gaelic scholar and author of many books written in the Ulster Irish idiom has for some years back been engaged in collecting the poems of certain of our northern bards. Some of the poems he had found in old manuscripts, but frequently he hears them rendered as songs in the cottages or at Gaelic assemblies. Not long ago, he was appointed by the Board of National Education in Ireland as Inspector of Irish Language Teaching. In the course of his duties, he was visiting the mountainous district on the border of Tyrone when he came upon a pair of splendid traditional singers, Eamon and Anne Tracy, a brother and sister, both native speakers of Irish, resident some 9 or 10 miles from Omagh. He took down the words of about 20 songs from them, without by any means exhausting their store, but was not able to note the music. He immediately sent me word with full directions as to how to find their place of residence, and warning me to send a letter some days beforehand announcing my intention of visiting them. Omagh is my native place, and it was no surprise to me to hear of Irish speakers living near it, as in the fairs and markets in the days of my childhood, the bargaining and dealing used to be carried largely on in Irish. I had, however, not heard Irish singing, for the singer of Irish is never a street beggar, but belongs to the more respectable class of small farmers up in the mountain districts where the native Irish were not dispossessed. The wandering poets found shelter and hospitality in these little country homes. Of course, the harpers were invariably entertained at gentlemen's and noblemen's mansions. But on their journeys, as we learn from Arthur O'Neill's life, they often stayed at farmhouses as well as inns. But the rural poets of the 17th and 18th century belonged essentially to the homes and the hearts of the people. They often worked as farm labourers or errant schoolmasters, and their compositions echo the hopes and loves and simple joys of country life. Arriving in Omagh on the evening of May 10th, we prepared for a picnic expedition to Benafraken the next morning. My sister, Miss Alice Milligan, who accompanied me, was full of pleasant anticipations of revisiting a country she had not seen since her 10th year. At the same time, she was anxious because no answer whatever had come to the letter we had addressed to Eamon Tracy. However, we had only gone in our car a little way beyond the picturesque chapel of Killyclare, a couple of miles outside Omagh, and were turning our eyes to the boglands when a cart rumbled down the hill past us. In it were seated an elderly man and a woman comfortably rolled up in big shawls and seated on bundles of hay. He stared very hard at our car. Meantime, my sister had caught sight of the name Tracy painted on the cart and called after him. He was in fact in the act of pulling up his horse at the foot of the hill, and we dismounted and ran down to question him. "Are you Anne and Eamon Tracy?"
Aye, the very ones.
"Oh, great. So we're in the right place."
You are indeed.
These were no other than our singers, who had not received the letter in time to answer, owing to the fact that a postman did not visit them every day. They were determined, however, not to miss us, and rising early, had reached the outskirts of Omagh by the time we were starting. Such enthusiasm promised well, and we told them it was on the whole better that they had come in, as with a piano at our disposal in the White Hart Hotel, we could more easily note their music. So they went on towards the town, while our driver took us on a longer round to see some of the favourite haunts of our childhood. We reached Omagh a short time before our country friends and enjoyed a chat about the old legends and stories at Mountfield. My sister says the story told by Eamon about Loch and Tariff at Mountfield resembled a Welsh folk tale which she had heard given by Professor Rees at the folklore section of the Pan-Celtic Congress in Edinburgh. Comfortably seated in our hotel parlour, we now enjoyed a regular recital of traditional music, rendered with great spirit and feeling. Anne Tracy and her brother sang, sometimes singly, sometimes together. Then, when the song was finished, it had to be slowly repeated, phrase by phrase, while I followed on the piano and then jotted down the notes. Our singers patiently repeated every note and turn, their faces showing the keenest expression of anxiety when I stumbled over difficult and elusive passages. When at long last the old air was captured and replayed with a suitable accompaniment, Eamon's pleasure and triumph was very plainly visible as he exclaimed,
"You've got it now, as well as ever it can be got."
A great many of the airs were slow and difficult, and not very distinctive in character. So, with limited time at my disposal, I chose out those that were striking, at the same time, as far as possible, trying to choose those which Mr. Morris had marked as interesting to him. Anne Tracy said that she had learned all these songs from the singing of her mother and grandmother. When she was a child, there was no English spoken at all up in their country, but they were taught a scattering of it in school. She was never taught to read or write Irish. The teachers were now instructing the young people to read and write Irish. Eamon told me that he had visited Ballinascreen once to sing in a Gaelic concert. He sang 3 traditional songs on that occasion, and had the pleasure of hearing Mr. R.L. O'Mealy of Belfast playing on the Irish pipes. That was a great treat. As to the style of singing, suffice to say that it was in the real traditional method, and that the voices of both rang clear and true, though Anne Tracy assured us that before the loss of some of her teeth, her singing was very much better. We can easily believe that, as a young girl with the freshness of youth, her singing must have been wonderful. But indeed, there was nothing wanting for our purposes, as her ear was still acute to the accuracy or incorrectness of our efforts to catch the tunes. My sister said that both pronounced their Irish words with great clearness. We were in fact able to catch the refrains and join in. My sister, who has heard traditional singing in every part of Ireland, said that in the songs which Eamon and Anne sang together, they reminded her of Highland singers she had heard in the Hebrides. This part of Ireland was always closely in touch with Gaelic Scotland and the Isles. Our famous harper, Rory Dal O'Cohan, was native of the district bordering on these Tyrone mountains, and so was old Hempson, who played before Prince Charlie at Holyrood. Balnaskeen, or Draperstown, which is at the County Derry end of the hill range, was the place where so many harps were made. No wonder that such beautiful music still lingers on. Leaving Omagh for a 2 days visit to Trillick, or rather to the parish of Kilsgare, on the Fermanagh border, a very interesting experience awaited us. In this district, the parish priest, Reverend Matthew Maguire, has in a most determined manner set about replanting native language and native song in a district from which it had vanished. By native song I mean singing in the Irish language, for I am glad to say that country singing and fiddle playing abound here. Father Maguire has organised a very perfect system of night school extension classes all over his parish. His success is an example to all Ireland, for he possessed no exceptional advantages in the material he had to work with. Irish was not spoken in any part of his parish, nor is Father Maguire a native speaker. He has, however, supreme business-like capacity, enthusiasm, and above all the gift of imparting it to others. And fortunately, his enthusiasm is for the revival of everything beautiful and good that is native to Irish culture. He also desires to see the country and the homes of the people comfortable and beautiful within and without. Music he recognises as the art which can be most intimate in the home, and he has spared no trouble to secure for his parish the best instructors. In other parts of Ireland, we have met excellent choral instructors in the national schools, but every reader of the Folk Song Journal will rejoice to hear that Father Maguire has imported a traditional singer from beyond Tuam in County Galway. Miss Annie Hessian has secured high distinctions for singing at the Dublin Oireachtas and has a great store of Connacht songs. Her pupils have the opportunity of learning from her the most famous Gaelic songs of Ireland, including many that are not in any of the music books. On our first evening, Father Maguire took us to visit a night school held in a place called Knocknagar, where a cabin on the verge of a bog has hitherto done duty for a school. There are many fine schools in the parish, but we arrived on the day of the Knocknagar class, and were indeed pleased to see that the primitive character of the building did not prevent its being a centre of culture and enlightenment for a large number of girls, who in finishing their school career wished to go on with their education. At the request of Father Maguire, I gave an address on the Irish harpers, particularly those who were connected with County Tyrone. Then Miss Hessian sang in Irish a bright song, The Hornless Cow, all present joining in the refrain. After some dancing displays, she sang again, and her choice was a song whose tune I had long been seeking for without success, namely, The Lament of Thomas Costello for Una, daughter of MacDermot. The words of the lament and the story connected with it are to be found in Dr. Hyde's Love Songs of Connacht. A version slightly differing is among our bunting papers, but the air is not there. I had often asked Connacht singers for it in vain, and here, most unexpectedly, I had heard it that night in the cabin school of Knocknagar in County Tyrone. Miss Hessian learned it from Mr. Waldron, another of Father Maguire's teachers, a native of County Mayo. He's not a singer, but he knows many songs, and this one has been handed down in his family. He was able to give it to me note by note next day, with information about some of the songs in the Bunting collection. On the second evening of our visit, Father Maguire brought us to see a class in one of his well-built and equipped schools, which stands with its experimental garden plot at the end of the village of Trillick. Here I spoke again on the ancient music of Ireland and appealed to the teachers and young people to preserve all the folk songs which still survived. In response, Mr. Granger, Irish instructor, and Mr. McElhone give us examples of songs indigenous to the district in contrast to the Gaelic ones which I had got from the two Connacht teachers. These were The Bonny Irish Boy, an emigration ditty, and The Breaking of Omagh Jail, relating to a ribbon man's escape from incarceration. Returning to Omagh en route to Belfast, we arrived in the middle of a great annual May hiring market. There was only one ballad singer in the street. His repertoire included Father Tom O'Neill, a local ballad, which I had already collected. An accordion player gave a selection of Irish airs, largely made up of Moore's melodies, but I was glad to hear him finish with The Blackbird. Visiting the local schools, I was glad to see in the music room of the Loretta Convent a harp among the instruments. My sister accompanied Reverend Monsignor O'Doherty to the Girls' National School and saw the Irish class under the direction of a teacher trained at Ballingeary. The pupils also sang in Irish. On the whole, a very favourable impression remains as to the survival of native music in County Tyrone. In the Irish-speaking district, a copious supply of traditional music is available, and the rising generation have every facility for recording and preserving the wonderful melodies that have come down from days of old. Distinct from the choral singing in the schools, the pupils should be instructed in the simpler method of singing traditional melodies in unison, and to give variety, dividing into sets. Verses could be given antiphonally, the whole company joining in the refrain or in the concluding verse. Charlotte Milligan Fox.
Rather gan wunu shena key, flip rather gan wunu gan wunu flip rather gan wunu shena key.